He's in early. He's on the Tom Coughlin. He's on the Tom Coughlin plan. He's on the Tom Coughlin plan. 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, the door is shut and you can't come in. It's always good to have Steve Cangialosi come and join us and find out what's on his mind as we head into yet another weekend. It's been far too long, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you. You are my last order of business before I head to the airport and heading for Charlotte. And by the way,
yes, sir.
I don't think Wilfred Zaha wants me to see him play. The last time I was in Charlotte was game 1 of the playoffs against New York City. He was suspended then, and you got to give the guy credit. 5 yellow cards in 6 games to start the season. That's not easy.
No, it is not. And so he will be in street clothes, and he'll be watching Charlotte and Nashville, as you and Danny get to mention everything about that one at the bank. So then, okay, he asked, how does Charlotte make up for that? Is it Toklamati? Is it young folks like Rodolfo Aloco? What are you looking at in this one?
The one thing I'm fairly confident of is that they're not going to move Pep Biel anywhere on the field other than where he's been, because he has been exceptional at the 10 to start this season. And that, to me, is maybe the most important thing for Charlotte out of the gate as they wrap up this 5-game homestand on Saturday night. Because one avenue of possibly rectifying this was to move Biel out wide, which he's done before. I can't see that happening. So the obvious replacement for Wilfred Zaha in the starting 11 is Liel Abada. Or should I say it should be the obvious replacement? I'm not sure that that's the manner in which they will go. They have some other options here. They can try De La Torre out there. They could use Tiger Smalls. And you know what this says, John? There's quite a body of work already for Liel Abada, right? He's played better than 60 games in MLS. He's a designated player. And still, we're not at that point where you put his name in ink in the starting 11. And that's something that I think the fans now are recognizing. And the question is, how long does Dean Smith and management of Charlotte FC go on with this? But I expect him to play, but I wouldn't bet the house on it on Saturday.
So then how much of a leash do you give it? From all the time that you've been spending looking at Eastern Conference, how long of a leash are you giving this situation before you have to sit there and go, yeah, we might as well try and cut bait here?
Well, I think that the natural stop point for everybody in MLS, including Charlotte this season, is that World Cup break. Once you get past Memorial Day weekend, then it's almost a reset, right, for every front office in MLS, where you're going to have time before you kick a ball again 6.5 weeks later to assess what you are and what you want to be and what you can be. And I think that's probably the natural point where a lot of things will be addressed. Zaha's future has to be addressed at some point between now and then. Let's look at what Charlotte is, John, right? A top 4 team in the Eastern Conference last year. And they started the playoffs at home for the first time in their existence. But in a way, wouldn't you agree that that was disappointing for them as well, considering what they were for a good stretch of the middle of the season? They had a 15-game undefeated streak in all competitions at one point last year. And to only finish as high as 4th, I think it left a lot on the table. And I think the real challenge is going from good to super good in this league. And I think they're one of those teams that's in that category right now. So, yeah, I would say early summer is when we're going to have to take a long, hard look at what we're doing with that spot.
And how long can Christian Kalina continue to stand on his head and bail you out of Lord knows how many games he has done? I mean, it literally has turned into one of those things. Sun rises in the east, you pay your taxes by 5 days from now, and Christian Kalina stands on his head. I would imagine there's going to be a point where he'd be sitting there going like, man, I'm tired of this. I'm too tired. I'm an old man. Give me some help here,
Well, I do think that, by the way, one of the great signings in MLS over the last 5 years, isn't it? He came here December of 2021. I think I have it on my chart, from Ludogorets, the champions in the Bulgarian league at the time. And yeah, the league leader in saves, and I guess that's a badge of honor when we address it that way. And those words will probably come out of my mouth in the first 10 seconds of the broadcast on Saturday, but they would prefer it not be that way, right? And I think the challenge for this team is Kalina continuing to do what he does as they adjust now to some different center backs on this team, because Morris Ajiman comes into the equation to play with Tim Ream, who, of course, is not getting any younger, can't run like he used to run when he was 21 years old, but still, somehow, some way, still finds himself the real fabric of that back line, and also a probable starter for the United States at the World Cup this summer, right? So Kalina navigates all of that. They're playing with fire if it continues this way, but I think those are the things that are utmost on Dean Smith's mind. He had the stingiest defense in the Eastern Conference just 2 years ago. I think he'd like to get back to that.
And then you have that back line that you're talking about with Charlotte going up against, I mean, A, B, C, D when it comes to some of the top offensive dudes out there. It's like, okay, Surridge, Mukhtar, and then, oh, yeah, by the way, we're just going to take Christian Espinosa. Oh, you forgot to sign the paperwork. Okay, hey, about coming over here. I mean, that you're talking about playing with fire, man. That's some heavy-duty stuff that you got to be putting up with this weekend, you know?
Yeah, I'm excited to see this with my own two eyes for the first time. I mean, I've watched them on Apple TV, obviously, up until this point. Now, the X factor here, John, is what is BJ going to do with the starting lineup? Because remember, he has the quick turnaround to Tuesday night. They have a very difficult assignment going to Club America, and it's a competition I know they're taking very seriously. And the turnaround here is it's always harder to go Saturday to Tuesday than Tuesday to Saturday, right? There's the one less day, and now there's the travel as well to Mexico City. So this is quite a challenge that they have in front of them. There's going to be some squad rotation. How much of it is enacted with the top three of that attack? I couldn't get Callahan to bite on that when I spoke with him yesterday. Perhaps he's still up in the air about how many minutes he wants to allot each one of them. There is one scenario where maybe he sits all three for the first half and says, I want to just stay in this game for 60 minutes and then bring on my big guns and go for the result that way. So it'll be an interesting call for him. But to your point, it's quite an approach by the front office, isn't it? And I understand the mindset of Mike Jacobs, and he's not the only general manager or sporting director in the league that takes this approach, because we're fascinated by goals in this country, right? We love high-scoring games, which quite often are the residue of defensive mistakes. But he's gone all in with 3 DP spots with his players up top. It's not that unique of an approach, but I wonder over the course of 34 games how much they might get exposed elsewhere on the field as time goes on. But to your point, this could easily be the highest scoring team in MLS this year.
And it reminds me of like the 1980s Edmonton Oilers. You know, it's like okay, so it's Curry and Anderson and Messier and Gretzky and Esatikinen. It's like literally, I'm staring at this and I'm going, yeah, this is some high-powered stuff. And the lineup, to your point, that they had against Club America in the midweek, you had a back line of Baker Whiting, Milegi, Palacios, and Nahar. In front of them, it was Matthew Corcoran, who might be 12 years old. He might be having a birthday at some point here soon.
They tell me he's 20.
Having covered him, all these years from MLS Next Pro, it's like, man, I've covered you for so long. You got Corcoran and Yazbek, and then you have Madrigal with the Three Musketeers up top. The three, it's all of a sudden. I just had a Chevy Chase, Martin Short, Steve Martin visual pop into my head, where the three of them are on horses. But I mean, you look at that back line, and they've been piecing it together, very, very defensive, doing what BJ Callahan wants them to do. It's an interesting contrast. It's like you've got your big guns up top, but then you've got the guys at the back that are holding it together, and they're the ones that aren't getting a whole lot of press just because they might not even be household names in their own household at points.
I think that the interesting thing is that the window for this group might not be an elongated one. And that's why I think the occasions like Tuesday night for them are very big. Surridge still has a lot in front of him, right? He's 27. He's just entering the prime of his career, you might say. But Espinosa's been around the block. He's 31. Mukhtar, to me, is the most fascinating element of this troika that we've referenced here, because I never really was quite sure whether or not he would get back to the level that we saw in 2022 when he was named the MVP of this league, and quite deservingly so. But it's almost as if, as Surridge really found his finishing game, Mukhtar had this second chapter of greatness now that we're still experiencing at this point. I don't know how many more kicks at the can this group will get together. Now, Nashville is well run. They have a great fan base. They're very well coached by B.J. Callahan. But this nucleus, as we see it, we might only see 1 or 2 more years for this particular group to seriously chase trophies. And that's why I think they're all in, and they're going to be dangerous for anybody who gets in that path. I think there's a real chance they could add 1 or 2 more pieces of hardware after that U.S. Open Cup last year.
And when Hani Mukhtar was just Hani Mukhtar and then 9 other guys and Joe Willis, it was okay because that positional gravity, you could double him, you could bracket him, and it was easier to defend against Nashville than it is now because of all of these different options that you're getting. And that might be a byproduct of Gary Smith versus B.J. Callahan when it comes to approach. But now that you have all these other things, Mukhtar can breathe again. And he can kind of work his way around, and he can kind of get hidden, and he can work his way through and all this kind of stuff. It's amazing when you get friends to help you out, how you can have a renaissance like you're talking about.
I remember talking to Dax McCarty when he was in Nashville, and this was during that terrific Leagues Cup run that they had to the final, the very first edition of the tournament back in 2023. They lost that epic game against Messi and Inter Miami at the end in a shootout. And this was during the run. I did one of those games, and the results were coming. They were playing well. Geodis Park was filled with 30,000 for a lot of these games. And I remember him telling me before one game, he said, this is not sustainable. He said, we're asking too much of the same guy. And we keep having this conversation of secondary scoring. Where will it come from? And we've been unable to crack that code. Well, I think that feeling lingered even when Surridge first joined this team and had only a couple of games toward the tail end. And I think we went into that first offseason with Surridge as part of the group where people were wondering, is this an overrated signing? Is this going to work out? Then he has 12. And then last year, the breakout with 24. And this season, the possibilities seem endless. And when he scores them in bunches. And I expect we're going to see a few more waves of that this year.
Another couple of minutes there with Steve Cangialosi before he hops on a plane. And because we've already had Devin Kerr stuck in the Delta Crown Club at B Concourse at Hartsfield. He's already
airport delays in the United States of America in 2026.
I don't know. Just one of those things. Looking at all things being equal, we'll take it a team at a time. If the Three Musketeers start for Nashville and, BJ wants to go all full bore from, moment zero until he's got a comfortable lead and he thinks he can get the result in the door. Who do you think are those second level guys, the foot soldiers, the ones that don't get all the press, the ones that won't be in the spot shadow off the top, that will make things successful for Nashville? We could have already talked about them. They could have been on the table. Who are those second-level guys for you for Nashville to be successful on the weekend?
Well, I'm going to give you one on each team, if that's an acceptable answer, okay? Because There's a guy we don't talk enough about, and he's replaced Walker Zimmerman, who was two-time Defender of the Year in this league, and that's Maxwell Waleji, who's in his first year as an MLS defender. Couple of things about this man who's 24 and he's just joined the league from Ghana. He's got tremendous pace, and a lot of times we equate that with the ability to get forward in order to make recovery runs back. But when you think about the way that Nashville plays, right, with Nahar on one side and Lovitz generally on the other, sometimes it's Reed Baker Whiting, as you alluded to. A lot of that quickness has to do with lateral movement, going right and going left. And he's got that. And he becomes an integral part of everything that they do. And I also think you'll see him dribble the ball forward more than most center backs in the league. So that would be my answer for Nashville. From the flip side, I would go back to Ashley Westwood, who I think is affected by Zaha's absence more than any other player. Because remember, Zaha's fouled more than any other guy in the league. Last year was 122 times. So what do you lose? You lose those plays where Zaha is fouled. Those fouls lead to free kicks. Those free kicks lead to genuine scoring opportunities by a fantastic set piece taker in Ashley Westwood. So my mind is set on Westwood and how he seeks to control the game from the Charlotte perspective here without Zaha. He is, according to his coach, still one of the finest physical specimens that you're going to see on this team at the age of 36. He wears the captain's armband, and that's not just for show. He's the guy who generally, I'm told, in training, ready to play every game. So I want to see how Westwood can impose his will on this game without Zaha in the lineup. I think he's got it in him. I think we've got a fair fight. And I do think from Charlotte's perspective, you need this. You're playing well at home. This is a 5-game homestand that wraps up, and the schedule evens out by the time you get to 34. Bank those points now. You're going to need them in the end.
Mm-hmm. So if you would please, sir, ellipses, go ahead and hit the promo for me so you can go ahead and get out the door and go to the airport.
Apple TV. Hey, this is the Walmart Saturday Showdown. Did you know that?
Yes, I did, and I believe we have a shipment coming from that particular store to the front door with some stuff for the weekend. So,
yes, 7:30 p.m. on Apple TV, Saturday night. Danny Higginbotham is my partner in the booth. Jillian Sakovitz will be sideline for us. She always has some interesting nuggets during the course of the game. We look forward to working with her for the first time this year. And this should be a good one on a Saturday night in April. I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think about Danny and the shininess up top? He has eschewed the follicles now.
Follically challenged, is he? You're saying?
I thought he was just getting rid of it. It's last time I saw him, it's just clean.
You know what? Let's go with that. He's getting rid of it. Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, have a great broadcast, my friend. It's great to see you. Don't be a stranger, and we'll see you soon.
All right, John. Take care. Thanks for having me, buddy.
You bet. Steve Cangialosi.